You're listening to the 49 Carats Podcast, a 49ers Goldmine production with Stephanie Sanchez.
What's going on, everyone? Welcome to another edition of the 49 Carats Podcast. I'm your host, Steph. It is Monday, August 26th. Over the weekend, the 49ers completed their final preseason game, so we could finally move our focus to actual football, at least happening in, a week and a half or so. But we're really excited about that. And I'm excited because it's Monday. No, I'm not. But, we are still excited to do 49K Player of the Week with my Monday co-host, as always, Weston P. Smith. Weston, how you doing today, man?
It's Monday.
It's Monday.
It's Monday, but I hope I'm doing this right for the young kids. But we are Ricky Pearsall days away from 49er Open. Did I get that right, Steph? Is that how that
exactly
goes?
14. Yeah, exactly 14. Because
exactly
the 49ers
14.
play Monday night. So 2 weeks for us. Does it suck that we're going to have to wait the entire weekend to see our team play and then all of Monday, basically? Or are you like, you know what? I could enjoy the glory that is the very first Sunday of the NFL season without having to worry about how my team did until the next day?
I'm on the fence about this because I'm kind of the school. I think I tell myself this every time they have a Monday night game. Like, oh, I get to just enjoy Sunday's slate, right? Like, I just get to hang out. And then I just sit stressed and anxiety-ridden all day long on Monday. Like, there's a part of me that's like, and I'm on the East Coast, right? So not only am I all day, it's a late night, right? So win or lose, Tuesday tends to be the drag-ass day of the week during the football season for me. But I kind of I think opening week, I would prefer to rip the Band-Aid off. And selfishly, this season and this season only, and I think I've said this to you before, Steph, is I was really praying that Monday night or that first primetime game was going to at very least be in week 2 because I have a golf trip that I'll be out in Utah for. And because they play a 1:00 game, instead of flying home on Sunday like a normal human being would do after this, I'm going to play 2 rounds of golf on Saturday, and then get on a red eye in Vegas to come all the way back home. So I'm home in time for a 1:00 kickoff. But that's a long answer to your very short question. My short answer would be I think I would prefer to rip the Band-Aid off on week 1.
So would you rather them play like Thursday, hypothetically, right? Like just that way you could, if they win, you can enjoy it. Or if they lose, then you're upset.
Well, I think Thursday night games are for the birds, right? I don't agree with Thursday night games in football.
But we watch them anyway.
Well, yeah, right. Doesn't matter who's in there, right? Like my wife looks at me at the start of football season. She's like, see you in February, dude. Like, meet you in the kitchen for dinner one night.
Put my 2-week notice in. Put my two-week notice in today. But Weston, you mentioned it. You're on the East Coast. That game on Friday was pretty late. The ending was, happened pretty late. Did you stay up for the whole game?
I can't believe I'm saying this out loud. I have never. This is the first time ever that I've slept through a portion of a 40. I just could not. You're talking about 1:30 my time. By the time it was happening, 2 young kids. I would say I made the business decision with like 4 minutes left in the game. Like, all right, I really don't care about the outcome here. But then I did wake up like 2 hours later, like still on the couch, passed out, and checked my phone and saw the chaos. So.
Imagine waking up right as that last play was happening. You'd have been like, what is going on? Like, what happened in this game? Because that was a doozy for sure. But
I think I saw everything I needed to see in that game, minus the grand finale of the final play of the game,
Well, if you can catch the replay, make sure you do that. But yeah, obviously we are going to be talking about the game, the final preseason game the 49ers had against the Raiders on Friday. Tied 24-24, but that's not what we're worried about in preseason. We're worried about who performed well, who didn't, how that has implications for roster cuts. So we'll talk about that in a bit. But first, let's get down to some business here. We've got some updates from the holdoutees of the 49ers. And I'm going to start with the first update here. This is regarding Trent Williams. This is what Jeremy Fowler from ESPN had to say.
Out with the 49ers. It's left tackle Trent Williams. What's the latest with him?
Well, I was told from somebody involved in the situation that he is not going to be available until he gets his contract adjusted. He's got 3 years left on his deal. That could bleed into the regular season with us just being a few weeks away. This is a player who's made about $150 million in his career. He's been taking up golf, kind of staying away from the team, doing his own thing, still training, of course, getting ready for the season potentially. But he's not overly stressed to have to be out there right now, and he's the 4th highest paid left tackle, despite being the best the last few years. So the 49ers know they have to do something here, could sweeten the guarantees on his contract. So they're dealing with Brandon Ayuk at the same time. They're trying to get this guy done. So they're hoping he'll be in the lineup here soon.
All right. So maybe not the news that we wanted. The news we would have wanted is the announcement that this deal is done, so Trent Williams could be back in the building. But I guess it's not exactly surprising for Trent to decide that he's not going to report until he gets that, new money.
Yeah, maybe I'm just jaded by this offseason and all the contract talks. Like, I don't believe anything that anybody reports anymore. I'm just letting everybody know there's no credibility across the board anywhere at this point in time. But I will say this, and we've talked about this with Brandon Ayuk a lot, more so, a few weeks back. But what's Trent's final card to play? And it's now. It's, hey, I'll miss games. I don't care, and I believe him. I actually do believe, if that is the report, I do believe that he is willing to miss games, because this is a money grab for Trent, right? It's all about money. There is no other reason that this is taking place, and which is theoretically different than the Brandon Ayuk situation for so many reasons. Trent at the tail end of his career, looking for the final restructure, right? Probably wants all that money in a year or two, and then he's going to walk, directly to Canton from here. But I think that's the card, is guys, I'll miss games. Now, the good news, 49ers fans, is we have a lull here right now. No more games, no anything. So we're going to be hyper-focused, nothing to distract us. But the two weeks in NFL time is like 2 years in real life. A lot can get done. A lot can get ironed out. And now with no games, what's going to be the primary focus, right, is probably putting these 2 contract situations to bed. And I would prioritize this man on your screen first. And then I would let the chips fall wherever they fall with Brandon Ayuk at this point. But this is the priority, getting Trent Williams back into the building. And I've seen a lot of people talking about how, hey, and we've talked about it, Steph, don't be so confident that Trent Williams can just step in and be Trent Williams, out of the gate. And I don't carry that confidence. I think people need reps. You need to get hit. I need all of that. But what I am the most confident about is that a 70% of Trent Williams is still a significant upgrade over Jalen Moore at left tackle. And that's not a knock on Jalen Moore. We're comparing him to a Hall of Famer. But if he's a little rusty, I still feel a little bit better about running the football to the left side of the line with 71 there than I do 76. And that's facts. That can't be disputed.
Yeah, and I think the speculation from some was that, Trent Williams didn't want to participate in training camp. He finds no value in it. Again, just speculation. And so that's why he wants to hold out. And the 49ers and him had an agreement that they would do that. And at the end, the 49ers, or he would sign the deal that the 49ers offered him after training camp is over. Clearly that's not the case, as now we're hearing this could go into the season. But I'm with you, Weston, that I don't know who we can trust in any of these reports at this point when it comes to Trent, when it comes to Brandon Ayuk, because what was it? Sometime last week, it was Deshaun Jackson saying he had just spoken with Trent Williams, and he was like, he'll be there shortly. And it's it's Monday. He's still not around. And not just that, he's willing to take this into the season, which I respect Trent for. I mean, he 100%, should hold out until the 49ers pay him. I guess the question here is, why is it taking so long? This is the this is the most no-brainer of all no-brainers when it comes to Trent Williams. So I guess that's the frustration for us fans, that like it's taking this long, not just for Trent, for Brandon Ayuk as well. And so the frustration will continue. There really is no update on the Brandon Ayuk front, except that CeeDee Lamb got his extension today. That now leaves 2 wide receivers that are looking for new deals, who are left, Jamar Chase and Brandon Ayuk. And CeeDee Lamb was one of the shoes that needed to drop, and it did. So he got a 4-year, $136 million deal. Now makes him the second highest paid non-quarterback in NFL history. The new deal includes $38 million signing bonus, and that's the largest ever given to a wide receiver. So this is a good payday for CD, as we could imagine. He definitely is in the tier 1 of wide receivers. Now, Weston, do you think this impacts Brandon Ayuk at all in any way?
There's 2 sides to this equation. I do think, Brandon's agent's probably sitting there, and Brandon's probably in his brain thinking like, I want that money. That's what I want. That's what the market is. But I don't think it moves the needle for the San Francisco 49ers whatsoever, because their first rebuttal is going to be like, sorry, you are not the equivalent of CeeDee Lamb and the Dallas Cowboys offense to this offense. There is a drastic difference in terms of output, reliancy, percentage of total yards, right? Like it's just, I don't think it changes for the 49ers, but from our perspective, it's just another aggravating fact here that this could have just been like handled months and months and months and months ago. And now you have to sit here and like, look, at the end of the day, it's just another carrot dangling out there that Brandon and his team can to leverage against it. And I know we're going forward, with Brandon, but I want to say one last thing about Trent. Steph, if I was a betting man, I would say that you will see Trent at practice next Monday, a week from today. Literally a week before they go. That's what I think it'll be. I think he just wants a week.
I hope it's by the end of this week.
I don't think so. I think it's early next week. It's a couple walkthroughs, a little sweat, and there we go.
I guess that's true. That's true. Which I would accept, by the way. If he's back next Monday, all right, let's freaking go. And as far as the CeeDee Lamb deal, yeah, obviously I don't think it changes the numbers really for the 49ers or for Brandon Ayuk, but I think for Brandon Ayuk and his camp, it just solidifies we need to keep holding on here. And by holding on, I mean holding out, because it makes teams do something. It spurs action. And clearly the Cowboys, got this done. It's the 11th hour, they're staring down the start of the season. And so they got it done. And we'll see if that spurs any action for the 49ers to get something done. But as we know, both sides holding strong. So I don't know. I still feel like this could go much longer, I think, because I do think Brandon Ayuk is probably willing to take this into the season as well. And I also think the 49ers are not willing to budge on what they've already offered, because as has been reported, they've already gone up on their price. So I guess we'll just have to see what shakes out. Fun stuff. But it's not like we haven't been talking about it all off season. So let's move on. Shall we? All right. So some good news today. I mean, obviously we've been tracking some of the 49ers injuries the last few weeks. 49ers got a few players back in practice today. Spencer Burford, who for the last few weeks had been, nursing his broken hand. He is back in the fold. He participated in team period as well. And first round wide receiver Ricky Pearsall did participate in practice today as well. He was sporting the blue no contact jersey, but that's okay. I mean, I think these next 2 weeks of practice are important for him to ramp up if he's, going to be active in week 1, which of course he's trending towards. So Ricky Pearsall was at practice today. Was in team period as well. Isaac Yiadom, who had been, hurt for the last week or so as well, didn't participate in team period, but he was doing individual drills, as was wide receiver Juwan Jennings, who was dealing with an oblique injury. So those two guys nearing 100% and trending towards week 1. I think that's all good for these guys. I was a little worried about the Ricky Pearsall thing because I think I was just, worried that it would mean, oh God, the dreaded, red shirt year. He's going to have surgery or something like that. But of course, that was before we knew what the injury was. We found out it's a sublux of his shoulder, which I don't know what that is, to be quite honest with you, Weston. That's why I have Desi on the show on Wednesday. So on Wednesday, I can't wait to talk to Desi about that. But in any case, it seems like he's going to be okay for week 1. But I mean, who are you most excited about from this list of guys to rejoin?
Yidium and JJ. I'll simplify it to my knowledge, as I don't have doctor talk, but sublux shoulder is essentially like a partially separated shoulder, right? Like not full, or partially dislocated, not fully dislocated. But Desi will definitely have a much more eloquent, insightful explanation to that than I will. So I look forward to that. But for me, it's Yidium and Jennings. I think quarterback is still the deepest position here. I thought Rock Yassin has had a good preseason, but I thought, Yidium was outplaying him early, especially like in camp, and has, could push to be that third guy, maybe even that fourth guy, depending upon how they're feeling about Renardo Green in the next 2 weeks. But with a lackluster and not flashy pass rush right now, and uncertainty around some of the injured defensive ends, even more important that the coverage is going to need to be on point. And then Juwan Jennings, I mean, like, he's like the heartbeat of the offense in terms of like the intensity and the blocking, and like you just need that guy out there. I mean, this guy was a win away from being Super Bowl MVP. You know what I mean? Like, you want that guy out there for sure, especially just if there's going to be continued uncertainty around BA. But these are the two guys for me with Ricky Pearsall. Like, yes, it's exciting to see him back out there. I still don't think the IR is far-fetched, right? I think they'll probably look at him over the next 2 weeks. And if they can't, after 2 weeks, if they can't take that blue contact jersey off, like I think you might see him on the pup, you know what I mean? Or whatever it might be. But I don't expect early dividends from him right now, the way that he's like trending. And I do fear that like the IR is still a distinct possibility. This was I think getting them, I saw a lot of people concerned about rushing him back out there. I think the rush to get him back out there was, we have to make a roster decision, and we can get down to 53, and then we can make our moves if we need to, based on like, is Ayuk coming back? Is Trent coming back? Right. Like, and he might be one of those names that they have to make a long-term decision on for the season. And I think that's why they were in a rush to get, hey, can you run around? Can you catch a football? We won't get you hit, but we need to see improvement, in terms of health and recovery. But yeah, Yidium and Juwan Jennings, I think those are guys who are going to contribute right out of the gate on this list. They need to be here. I mean, Spencer, 3 months ago, that was your starting right guard, but
yeah,
now he's a depth piece,
to backups. Yeah, and he was working with the second team in team periods today. That's no surprise. Before we see the full list of injuries and give additional updates, we got a super chat from Corey Soto. Thank you, Corey. He has a week 1 prediction for us. 17-10 Jets. Purdy 2 interceptions. Jets D wins. I've been doing some thinking about week 1, and obviously we have a lot of time to discuss week 1 and what could possibly happen. But the more I think about it, the more that game does worry me, because the Jets defense is legit. I'm not too worried about Aaron Rodgers at his old age at this point, coming off a season in which he did not play. And so that I'm not too worried about. I think the 49ers defense could handle that. And 17-10, that's a low scoring game. I could totally see that. The Jets defense is going to be legit. And if you don't have, Brandon Ayuk, if you don't have Trent Williams, or if those guys are there and they're just like slow starts, aside from all the other guys who could potentially be dealing with slow starts, because the 49ers have had history of that in the past, not so much last season, but could be a thing this year. Might not be all that of a lock for the 49ers in week 1, but yeah, this is not that crazy of a prediction, I think.
I didn't love this game when it was first announced, in terms of the opponent, just because styles make fights. The Jets they're built to play physical football, right? And I've seen the 49ers over the last couple of years struggle when there are teams that try to punch them in the mouth and be the bully back to the bully. There's been struggle there, but here's the reality: like, you can't predict. If I had to make a prediction, and I'm sure we'll do it, as we get closer, like, I just would flip the scores for the teams. I do think it'll be a low scoring game. I think week 1 tends to be that way because anybody who's ever played Survivor football, right, or is in a Survivor league, like, week 1, usually half the league is eliminated because nobody knows anything, right? Like, nobody knows anything coming out of the gate. You don't know what to expect. Who's overprepared, who's underprepared. I will say this, that, Kyle Shanahan has had a long time to think about this game. So I think he will be in his bag, especially if he's minus a couple of his wrinkles. I think that's strategically why he didn't call a lot of the plays in the preseason, because to remove the temptation of him dipping into like his own like secret sauce to unveil it. I think you'll see a lot of that come out in week 1. But yeah, they're going to be a tough opponent. Now, I do still believe, listen, they play in my backyard, right? The New York Jets, the New Jersey Jets, the New Jersey Giants. That's where they are. They're still a really poorly run organization at the end of the day. So it's hard to give, even with Aaron Rodgers there, for me to give them any credibility as a team. But I agree 1,000% with your sentiment about, like, if they're built anywhere, they're built on the defensive side of the ball. And if you come out of the gate slow offensively, they could capitalize. They got playmakers up and at all 3 levels on that defense, just like the 49ers do. They're built in similar vein and similar context, a la former defensive coordinator who was part of starting this run here under this group is their head coach.
Yeah, I kind of spoke with Jay on Bully Ball about this, and of course Jay on the East Coast in New Jersey as well. And he kind of had the same thoughts about the Jets, that it's like you can't take them seriously because of how bad and poorly run they've been for as long as they have been. So yeah, I think there's something to that as well until they can break that. So I guess we'll just have to see. But again, Corey, thank you for the prediction there. Let's look at the other injuries that we're tracking, some new ones, right? So after the game on Friday, 2 new injuries for the 49ers. Yetur Gross-Matos, defensive lineman, he had a knee sprain. He is week to, or sorry, I flipped. Oh yeah, he's week to week. Edge Leonard Floyd also has a knee sprain. He is day to day. George Odom didn't play on Friday's game. The reason is he has an ankle injury. For linebacker D. Winters, he has an ankle injury and still TBD on what his timetable is going to be. So that could potentially impact maybe some decisions they make on the 53 as well. We'll just have to wait and see. And Talanoa Hufanga, Kyle Shanahan said that the team is still deciding whether to start the season with him on PUP or not. So I guess it all kind of depends how he's looking in this step of rehab that he's in, which involves, football movements and things of that nature. So yeah, those are the latest updates. It's obviously no injury update is positive, especially when you lose 2 defensive linemen in a game. So that does sting a little.
Yeah, I mean, the defensive line injuries and even Aaron Banks lingering a little bit, like those are issues to me. This defensive line doesn't feel deep like it's been in years past with like a solid like 8-man rotation. Even the 2 aforementioned injured players, and I don't speak negatively about NFL players. They're more talented than I could ever imagine myself being in my own entire life, but they've been underwhelming in the limited time that we have seen them. They don't feel like this like high power addition that's going to move the needle in any capacity. The Aaron Banks, you need him back because you don't know what Trent's looking like. And if you can't run the ball left, you're in a world of hurting. If you have to rely on running off of a rookie and Colton McKivitz to that side of the ball, like that handcuffs them. And then, of course, the Christian McCaffrey. Like, you can say whatever you want. The guy, what was everybody's biggest knock before he got here, was concerned about the injuries and playing a full season. I'm going all the way back to knock on wood while I say this. I'll be superstitious. Like, he's been very healthy in his time here with the 49ers, but, not the start that you love to see. But here's what I would caution everybody. Like, when I think of Hufanga, I'd put him on the pup. Like, what are we even debating right now? Like, let him miss the 4 weeks. This league is not how you start, right? It is like literally how you finish. Like, we saw the Philadelphia Eagles collapse at the back half of last year, up off to a fantastic start, right? In 2021, we saw our own team like just meddling through the first half of the season and then just caught lightning in a bottle in the back half of the season. So, like, don't rush these things. Don't force these things. No team is winning 17 games in a season, right, and going undefeated. Like, given the offseason that they've had with this turmoil, like, I expect a very bumpy start. But if they could just, like, keep their cool, the ball bounces funny ways. It's a game made of, and living behind momentum. Catch it. Like, do the right things here. You have some savvy veterans. Like, stay the course and remember that you play in the NFC versus the AFC in the modern day National Football League.
Yeah, I kind of wonder if it has anything to do with George Odom also nursing an injury right now, and it's an ankle. I don't know if they've specifically said what the timetable for George Odom is, but, maybe if they know he's not going to be available week 1, or if that's in doubt, maybe that's why they'd want to hold out hope for Hufanga. But even then, I mean, that would be some risky business there. So we'll just have to wait and see on Hufanga. But those decisions do have to be coming up pretty soon because we do have roster cuts happening tomorrow. We got the first wave of cuts from the 49ers today. Matt Breida and Keyshawn Vaughn, both running backs that got signed during training camp. They were both released. As far as the waived players go, preseason All-Pro punter Presley Harvin III, guard Lewis Kidd, and wide receiver John Trey Kirkland. All of these guys were guys that signed during camp. They all signed because of injury. And so 49ers make them their first wave of cuts. It doesn't mean that these guys don't have a chance to make it to the practice squad. I mean, I personally think that Matt Breida looked pretty good and probably had a good enough chance to make this 49ers practice squad. And, if he doesn't get picked up by another team in the next couple of days, I would assume Matt Breida to come back to the practice squad with this team. So, yeah, I think this is obviously like the worst part of, the NFL having to cut all these guys, dreams getting crushed. But hopefully the 49ers make the good decision of having their best 53 guys on this roster. But I know it does get tough. So we'll know more about cuts tomorrow, but I don't think any of these names are really surprising to me.
No, not even a little bit. Like, I'm not even surprised about Breida. Like, I thought he had, glimpses where he looked like 2019 Matt Breida on this roster. But if you saw anything, you saw how deep this team is at running back. I think that was on full display throughout the offseason and the preseason. And there's just not enough football to go around. If he can find his way to the practice squad, great. I don't know how likely that is. I think there's some teams that'll be looking for some veteran help early in the season if they got some lingering issues. We focus so much on our team, we forget that the rest of the league is banged up too. The rest of the league is going through contract negotiations too, but we're so hyper focused here. I'm more interested to see what's on the scrap pile for the 49ers to potentially, what's the saying, stuff? Another man's trash. One man's trash is another man's treasure, I think is the saying. This league is full of those stories, right? Of finding people off the scrap heap and say, like, hey, they just fit what we do, so curious to see if there's a last minute addition from another team being cut or somebody that our coaches have familiarity with along their professional journeys as well.
it's going to go both ways, right? Obviously, teams are going to be looking for the 49ers cuts and, trying to pick up some of those guys. And then I also think, yes, of course, the 49ers are going to be looking at other teams. Their scouts have been looking at these other preseason games, seeing who stands out, see who doesn't make the 53 of other teams. And of course, like, to me, it's more likely that anyone that the 49ers pick up probably going to make the practice squad, just because it's how good the 49ers are. So that's what I'd be looking out for. And I'm sure, like, if you think of some positions of need for this team, there aren't too many. I would say maybe defensive line. There's been a number of injuries to the defensive line, so I'm sure the 49ers would be looking there. And who knows? Maybe we even see a trade, right? Maybe the 49ers trade for someone. Maybe they trade away a player. That's not off the table either. That is something that is, heavy around this time before roster cuts. So we'll see what gets going there. But yeah, I absolutely think the 49ers will be looking for guys on other teams as well, as they should. But Weston, it's that time of the show where we are going to be nominating 49K Player of the Week. Of course, like we mentioned, 49ers had their final preseason game on Friday. So we got to see a number of guys fight for a roster spot. And Weston, I'm going to let you go first, as I always do, because I'm just so nice to my guests here. Want to give you the opportunity. Who's the first nominee for 49K Player of the Week?
You are always so kind, throwing me to the feeding me to the sharks to go first. This might not be the most popular, but I'll give my rhyme and my reason behind it. But I'm going to start with the rookie running back, Isaac Guerendo. And listen, statistically, it doesn't look all that great. Sub 3 yards a carry. Right. But God, you can see the potential. And why I know the whole focus of the award that we give at the end of this show is on a per game performance basis. So why this game? Well, first, it's the first action we've seen from Guerendo since he hurt his hamstring on like the first day of practice. Right, this man singly came into this game and literally guaranteed himself a spot on the 53 just by his performance in this game. I would say the kick return. Listen, he had a couple catches. You need to be able to catch the ball out of the backfield here. Like I said, 11 carries, 32 yards. It didn't look all that sexy. But the kick return itself, I literally found myself, and I don't often stand up during a preseason game, right? I know why I'm watching it. But screaming at the television like, please, because the last kick return that I have seen the 49ers return for a touchdown is all the way back in 2018 by former 49er legend Richie James. Then you could go back all the way to 2011 to 10 Ginn. So it's something that we do very few and far between. But here's what Isaac brings. That home run capability, and you saw it. You just saw it, right? Like a little bit of better blocking, a little bit of a bigger seam, like he's going to go. Like, he's a big body who moves fast. Like, I think he fits perfectly with what Kyle Shanahan wants to do, which is put your foot in the ground and get north and south. And, oh, by the way, I'm fast enough to stretch the field if I need to. So, again, statistically, that's not going to look super attractive. That kick return looks great. And with this new kick return format, I think he literally just gave himself the job, right? So you're on the 53 there in one kickoff. But like that changes so much. And we've used this term a lot here, stuff like looks the part. He looks and feels like an ideal Kyle Shanahan running back. So much so, and I know I will get slandered for this, he'll steal carries from Jordan Mason. He will. He's just different. And I think Kyle covets that. I think Kyle calls plays, everyone hoping to be a touchdown. He doesn't call them just to get a yard, right? Like, he dials up touchdowns. That dude is a dialed up touchdown.
That's a bar. That's a bar right there. But yeah, Isaac Guerendo was one I had on my list as well. And obviously the fact that he missed so much of training camp, the fact that he was a 4th round pick for this team, I think the expectations were low, just because, like, I don't want him to be low, but we've seen so many running backs get drafted by this team early and they kind of fall flat. At least right away, they're not looking very good, right? Or promising. But Isaac Guerendo, coming into his first NFL game action to do what he did with the returns. I mean, everything you said, I have to echo. That's an element that this team hasn't had in so long. Never mind just the speed element that he can bring to the offense, but returns is huge, especially with the new kickoff. The new kickoff rule was made for Isaac Guerendo. And 93 yards. Like he could have probably taken that to the house as well. And I saw he was getting interviewed by Lindsay Perales, the 49ers team reporter, after the game, and he said like the way they've kind of taught them to look at these returns is think of it like a outside zone, run pretty much, just find your space and go. And that's pretty much what he did. And so I like that because like if he's looking at it from that mindset, it makes it easy. I mean, he's been in the outside zone scheme for a long time, been successful in it. So just another day in the park for Isaac Guerendo. And yeah, obviously his rushing numbers weren't sexy. But from what I saw, most of it had to do with the lack of blocking, more so than, Guerendo's skill. I think we know when he had, the spaces, we saw him like cut and go for a couple of those. So I'm not too worried about that. But Isaac Guerendo, yes, absolutely, should be a nominee here. So glad you mentioned him. I do have to, just to stick on the running backs here. You said Isaac Guerendo is going to be taking Jordan Mason's opportunities. Man, well, Jordan Mason's probably going to be taking Elijah Mitchell's opportunities. So it's kind of those two guys maybe moving up the ladder a little bit. Jordan Mason, 42 yards on 8 carries. He accounted for 4 first downs. The guy just eats yards up for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Like, he just makes it look easy. And I know what he's doing is difficult, but he makes it look easy. He's a freight train out there when he's running. Like, it's just such a joy to watch. Any run, you can guarantee he's gonna get at least 3, 4 yards, 5, just because his feet are always moving and he's gonna look to keep moving after the contact. So I just love that about Jordan Mason. We talked about it for a long time that some other parts of his game need to improve, but those are things that can improve. The hard part, he does really, really well. So I do have a lot of faith in Jordan Mason and that he's going to be way more involved in the offense this year, as he should be, especially as a closer, which I think should be when he should be utilized, just because he's so tough to bring down.
So it's so funny, right? Because I'm sitting here in one breath saying that Guerendo is going to steal carries from Jordan Mason. The reality is your dad listening tonight?
He dropped the comment. Yeah, I think he is.
Okay, because this is for him. Like the NFL today is not your dad's NFL, right? It's not my dad's NFL where every team had a bell cow, right? Now everybody does it by committee. These shifty formations, like very few teams have that one guy who touches the rock 25 to 30 times a game as part of the successful formula. Jordan Mason is a starter in this league on other teams if he's not backing up Christian McCaffrey, right, who's the best at the position. He does everything that you ask him to do. He's physical, and that's what the 49ers want, right? Like, they want to impose their will. And like, okay, if you have a physical offensive line and then you're just getting bulldozed by the guy who's coming from behind the line carrying the rock, it's an intimidation factor. Here's my favorite thing that Jordan Mason did in this game, and you guys are going to laugh at me. It was an incomplete pass. It was called a completion. It was clearly dropped on the sideline, but the way he got up and like pounded his fist mad is because he's been working on that element of his game, and he expects to make that. It's a difficult catch if he makes that for a wide receiver, let alone a running back who's not known for their hands. So I just love like where his mentality is going and what he expects of himself. I think this is the best position group on the entire team is running back right now. Like you could ship off any of these guys and get something halfway decent in return. I feel like just based on tape that they're putting out there. So I had four names, and these were two of them, both of them, Garendo, and that's why I went Garendo first, though, because I was like, I'm gonna have to justify this. Yeah, we're on the same page, Steph. We got it. Uh-oh. Did we lose Steph? I can't hear her. Steph, can you hear me?
Sorry, I muted myself.
Right.
Before we move on with more nominations here, got a super chat from Mark Salas. Thank you so much, Mark. He says Trent holding out until after tomorrow helps the 49ers add an extra player to the initial 53 since he doesn't count against a 53 while he holds out. This could be a wink-wink situation. That's interesting, actually, because, like, remember I was saying, hey, like, the only thing Trent wants to do is not attend training camp, all this stuff. That could have been an agreement. This could also, like, very well be a tinfoil hat moment where, like, this actually does make sense. Like, if the 49ers were like, I mean, here's your deal, just don't sign it until until after we decide our 53. I mean, hey, that's one way to do it.
Let's just put this on the rest of the conspiracy theory pile, right? Because there's been plenty of them around Trent Williams, but like walks like a duck, quacks like a duck, probably is a duck, and that's what this kind of feels like with Trent, right? Like it does, especially like it's not like the guy's got 1 year left. He's got 3 years. So I think the end game is really obvious. It's like, I don't want 3 to 4 more years on my contract. I want 2, and I want all that money here. Like I think it could be a simple fix, but I don't think there was any urgency from the 49ers because it's not like they're competing. They're competing against themselves for Trent Williams and retirement, not another team, not shipping him off, not any of those things. So I think the next few days are going to be really, really telling, but I like this thought here, Mark. I love it.
Yeah, it does give me some solace to think, okay, that's why he's not signed yet. Not because of the 49ers incompetence. It's because they're so smart that they're like, just, wait till after the 53 and those cuts. So yeah, thank you, Mark, for that. All right. I believe it's your turn, Weston, for the next nominee here. Who do you got?
I'm staying on the offensive side of the ball here, and I think I've said his name 3 weeks in a row, but I'm going to hammer home this point. Josh Dobbs. I don't know what else to tell you. Okay. In a very minimal sample size, mind you, right? He was 8 of 10, 72 yards, the touchdown on a very nice ball. Everybody was touting his very nice ball. I think he was late, and I think if that was against ones, that ball's picked off versus being against 2s and 3s in the end zone to Jacob Cowan for the touchdown. That's my opinion. But this game, again, especially since we saw Brandon Allen go out first and get more time and get more opportunity in terms of reps, I hear what you guys have been saying for weeks that like Brandon Allen just feels like the Kyle Shanahan solution to the problem. But please sit here and try to argue to the fact that Josh Dobbs has not done everything that he was supposed to do to prove that he should be on this roster as the second quarterback.
I agree. And look, if the 49ers decided they want to keep Dobbs and Brandon Allen for whatever reason, continue to hold on to Brandon Allen, fine. Keep 3 of them. Just don't cut Dobbs. And also, like, if you don't want to get into the politics of naming who's your backup, don't. Like, you don't have to. You don't have to unless, like, there was any injury to Purdy and one of them has to go in. That's your backup. But, I mean, just let it be. Just let it be. Keep them both on the roster, sure. 2A, 2B. Doesn't matter the order. Just keep Dobbs on this roster because I think he does bring something to this roster that Brandon Allen just doesn't. I mean, Brandon Allen was 5 of 7, 60 yards. He was efficient, 8.6 yards per target, per completion. that's fine. He was also sacked twice. You know why? Because Brandon Allen is a statue, in the pocket, whereas Dobbs is not. And I think Dobbs also, because of that, because he's able to move around, he has just a higher ceiling of just being able to do more. Like, am I crazy? Like, or did Dobbs have more touchdowns this preseason than Brandon Allen did? Did Brandon Allen have any touchdowns in the preseason?
I don't even think so. But Josh Dobbs absolutely did, because he threw a couple and ran a couple. So he's
Exactly. So
he's already ahead of the curve. Here's my question to you
about.
then, Steph. Right? Put your GM hat on for just a moment. Are you rolling the dice and hoping that Mordecai makes it to your practice squad?
Yes. Sorry, but I don't care about Mordecai. Like,
really?
We have our starter. We're so obsessed with like next man up in the quarterback room, because for so long we've been conditioned to think that we might have the next guy, like our next starting quarterback. We have our starting quarterback. We have our franchise quarterback in Brock Purdy. I do not care who the undrafted free agent quarterback is, unless it's for, trading to another team, a bargaining chip, sure. But other than that, I don't care. And I also don't care as much about who the backup quarterback is, because again, because of Jimmy Garoppolo and Trey Lance, like, we became so conditioned to, oh my God, we have to have a really strong backup quarterback. We need to have the best quarterback room possible, just because we can't rely on our starting quarterback to stay healthy. That is not an issue anymore, and I'm going to knock on wood to really like solidify that. But I just don't see it as a big a deal as everyone else does.
I hear you. I do. I ask because I think Brandon Allen's the one I let walk. Just figure it out and make it back to the practice squad. I think
I'd be fine with that.
I think there's things to like about Mordecai. I mean, listen, he was undrafted, for a reason, right? I mean, at least that's what I'm telling myself. But I just think I don't know. I just liked his coolness, his calmness. I feel like the game comes to him pretty easily. He's got the big arm. He's got certain things that I just like about him. I don't know if he sits around on the practice squad, but you're right? Brock's the guy. There's nobody here to take it from him. And if Brock turns out to not be the guy, whether it's just like excruciatingly painful play that is not going well and he comes back to reality, or an injury, the shit hit the fan anyway. So it really doesn't matter who the backup is. It's not going to be good.
Yeah, and great comment here from Jim. This was just decided today at the owners meeting. Got to keep 3 quarterbacks on roster after new rule at owners meeting today, saying can't elevate a quarterback off of practice squad anymore. Remember, that was the rule last season, and I believe that was heavily influenced by like Brock Purdy getting hurt in the NFC Championship game, having an emergency quarterback, all these things. And so now that emergency quarterback has to be on the 53. So, yeah, I think that makes it make more sense for the 49ers to keep 3 quarterbacks. To your point, should those 3 quarterbacks be Purdy, Dobbs, and Mordecai, or should it be Purdy, Dobbs, and Allen? So that's what the 49ers have to decide. I wouldn't be surprised if the 49ers are dangling Brandon Allen in a trade, maybe, or Dobbs. I mean, right? Why not?
Yeah, I mean, you get what you can get, right? If somebody throws a 6th, the 7th, like, you kind of take it, because you're going to let that, if you're considering you're letting that person walk anyway, or you might be on the fence and you're like, listen, if you're offering me a 7th for Dobbs, take Dobbs. We'll keep Brandon Allen. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, Dobbs, by the way, to get back to the nominations here, Dobbs, great nominee. I'll go with my next one here. I'm going to show some love to Jacob Cowing again, because I think what I was looking for after last week, and by the way, Cowing by a large number of votes won last week's 49K Player of the Week, what I needed to see from Cowing is, can he do it again? Could he be consistent? Was this just going to be a flash in the pan? No, I mean, I expected him to look good again, and he definitely did. So he remained consistent through these first 2 preseason games. Only had 3 targets. He caught all of them, 39 yards and that touchdown. And yes, that was threaded through the hole of a needle by Dobbs. So that was a great pass. And he looked comfortable fielding punts again, which I think is important because I think obviously Jacob Cowing was going to make the roster. That was not even debatable. But I think it makes it so you can cut Trent Taylor and you don't have to feel like you need to have Trent Taylor on the roster just because, Trent Taylor has all this experience with the returns. No, Cowing looked great. Isaac Guerrero, we already talked about, looked great with the kick returns. So I think they have their guys, and Jacob Cowing, like we've been saying, looks the part.
Yeah, I told you I got 4, and we just rattled off all 4. I agree with
Right.
you. I think the biggest.
No, can I just say honorable
yeah.
mention?
Yeah.
One honorable mention that I had, Darrell Luter, and I was also thinking okay, I didn't name any defensive players, so I was it kind of felt bad, but I'll give Darrell Luter one. Not a nominee, but an honorable mention, because 2 games in a row now that he's been targeted on a 4th down play in the 4th quarter in the end zone, and I mean, he kind of helped seal this one wasn't a win, but I guess seal the win and a tie.
Yeah, I think that pick might have saved his roster life, if I'm being honest with you. Between him and Womack, right? If it comes down to one of those 2, especially with Idiom coming back, sometimes you have to look at the statistical column, right? And who's productive on the field. I don't think he's played well all preseason, if I'm being honest with you. I thought he looked a little bit better on Friday night. But I also don't think Womack has played convincingly well or done anything to beat him out for the spot. But yeah, that pick was a big play, big time in the game, preseason or not. You know what I mean? They're feeling it. They know what they're up against in terms of trying to make this team. And he made a hell of a play, and I really do think that might be the difference for him. Is literally that one play could put him on there. But I have an honorable mention as well on the defensive side.
Yeah,
I'm gonna go with Malik Collins. I know everybody's seen the highlight of him tossing 2 offensive linemen to the side. We knew he was a big, strong man, but God, we need that. Right? We've been talking about how thin this defensive line is. We've been talking all offseason, especially since the start of preseason games, about how poor they've been against stopping the run, mainly to the edges, but anywhere really, teams are just running all over them. And God, that'd be really nice to not calling him DJ Jones. I think DJ Jones did it differently, but didn't that front just look a little bit different when 93 was there, and just that presence eats up space, eats up bodies, clogs holes for the second level to get to the ball carrier. And it was just nice to see. I thought he had a couple of those scenarios where he more than occupied his space and created some nice lanes. That video clip that you all saw, that was just that was the punctuation mark on the game, to watch a grown man toss 2 grown men on the same play and make the tackle, right? That's what the NFL is all about, and we need a lot more of that from Malik Collins this year.
Yeah, absolutely. Because those are the kind of things that you would see Eric Armstead do in the interior. Just take up space, and not just take up space, but make space for yourself to make a play. And that's exactly what Malik Collins did on that one. So that definitely promising. That's a great honorable mention. But guys, we have the names up on the screen: Isaac Guerrero, Jordan Mason, Josh Dobbs, Jacob Cowing, all offensive nominees here. So let us know in the comments who you think should be 49K Player of the Week based on their performance against the Raiders in the last preseason game. I think all these guys on the list obviously make the roster, so it's fitting that they've all been nominated here. So I'm going to tally up some lists, some of these votes. In the meantime, Weston, do you have anyone to put on notice? It's probably a good thing if you don't.
I don't know if I do. It's hard for me because I have such low expectations of. Yeah, I'm putting everybody that's on the injury report. I'm putting you all on notice. Now is the time to get off your ass, get into the training room, and get back onto this field. We need the reinforcements really bad. I would think Colton McKivitz, if I had to really just put a name. Just super underwhelmed by his performance so far. And I'm very underwhelmed about most of the offensive line, but that's kind of been my expectation. I was really hoping that going into the second year as a full-time starter, I'd see a lot more growth from Colton, and it just feels like it's stagnant growth. And I just don't think he played a very good game on Friday night, if I'm being honest. And I think a lot of people wanted to knock Brock for making poor decisions or whatever it might have been, but dude had pressure in his face, and a lot of it came from that side of the line. I'm chalking it up to him. So that's my short answer. I'd put Colton McKivitz on notice, but the only reason why it doesn't matter is because there's literally nobody there to supplant him. Nobody whatsoever. It's his position.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, it's pretty clear, especially with Dominic Pooney being next to him now, rookie, who's been playing great. It's pretty clear that Colton McKivitz is the weak link on that offensive line, and yeah, he has virtually no competition at the spot. Literally the only spot on the offensive line that doesn't have like a direct backup, or obvious backup to it. So
he had a 42.2 PFF pass block rate. That's horrendous. That's not good to be a starting tackle in this league.
Not good. No, not at all. I guess okay, guys, I want to maybe put on notice. I could kind of the same ones I've been putting on notice. Like Trent Taylor, I think he's gone. His hours are numbered at this point to be on this roster. And I think Ronnie Bell too. I'll say this, I think that Cam Latu showed well in that final preseason game. Personally, I don't think that's enough to save him. What I find interesting, though, is that Matt Miyoko, now twice that I've seen, has kind of carried some water for Cam Latu after what he says, he's improved in practices, and then he had that last nice preseason game. Is that enough, though, to make the roster? I don't know. I don't think so. Is that enough to make the practice squad? Sure, why not? I don't see why not. Okay, they clearly at some point the 49ers believed in Cam Latu to draft him as a third-round pick. But I mean, I don't think he deserves to make the roster over someone else. That being said, Braden Willis also kind of on notice for me too.
Yeah, I agree with you. I don't think Latu deserves to make this team, but he will because they spent a third-round pick on him, and it's just a year removed from him. Listen, I would actually give Shanahan and regime a lot of credit if they just cut bait, right, and say, okay, we're moving on from the mistake, right? That's all we ask from anybody in this world, friends, family, etc. Is if you make a mistake, just own up to it. Don't just continue to feed us the bullshit and jam it down our throat. You know what I mean? Make a mistake and move on. But I think that's hard to admit in this league, especially when we spend a third-round pick. And because of that, and because of where he's picked, he probably doesn't clear waivers to make it to the practice squad anyway, right? I think somebody's got to be willing to roll the dice on a big body who can move and sometimes catches the football. I don't, if they send him to waivers, I don't think he makes it back to the 49ers.
I guess.
But you and I are okay with that. I am plenty okay with that being the end result. I just don't know if the San Francisco 49ers are yet.
I don't know if I agree with that he would get picked up by another team. I think if he did get picked up by another team, he would be cut shortly thereafter at some point in the season. That's my thought personally.
Then we go find him again.
another team would be fine with cutting him more than the 49ers would because they don't have this like draft value attached to him.
Yeah.
So the 49ers are basically saying we'll hang on to him just because we decided to overvalue him. But hey, I'll give him a chance. It's just that that chance could be on the practice squad.
Which is no chance at all.
Yeah, well, I guess we'll see. But anyway, Weston, who would you vote for 49K Player of the Week of the players that we nominated?
I'm going Guerrero. I think I have to. I don't. Fans of the 49ers need to understand how impactful it would be if this guy could significantly change the guard on kickoff return for this team. Like that is, we ask our offense to do so much. Wouldn't it be nice if they didn't have to drive 80 yards every single time, but if it was 70, 60, 50 or shit, just hit the home run ball, Isaac. Like now that just feels like a possibility, like something that I've never even thought of before. For the last 3 or 4 years, it's never crossed my mind that, oh my God, the 49ers might be able to return this kick for a touchdown. I've never even thought that was a possibility. And now it feels like it's a possibility.
Literally on his first try.
Yeah.
Taking 93 yards casually. Yeah, I think I'm going to go with Guerrero too. So that's the good news. The bad news is that Jordan Mason, got most of the votes, even with our team votes. So JP Mason is your 49K Player of the Week. Thank you guys so much for voting. The live chat was lit tonight. So thank you all for making it fun. Appreciate all of you. Make sure you like this video if you haven't yet. Make sure you subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet. Audio listeners, leave a rating, leave a review. Appreciate all of you. We are 2 weeks away from 49ers playing their week 1 game against the Jets. But me and Weston are going to be back here next Monday to talk about, I don't know, to be honest.
Trent Williams returned to camp.
Yeah. Trent Williams, Brandon Ayuk, the usual, But for me, from Weston, have a good rest of your night, folks. Peace.